The first time his mom looked me up and down, I knew what she thought of me. Not because she said it directly. No, that would have been too honest for a woman like Cheryl. She just blinked slowly at my payless flats, tightened her grip on her Coach bag, and smiled like someone enduring a flight delay. "James says you're an artist?" she asked, voice syrupy with condescension. It was brunch at some place in Midtown that charged $22 for pancakes with a flower on top. James sat across from me, oblivious as ever, stuffing eggs into his mouth while I tried not to visibly shrink into my thrifted denim jacket. "Graphic designer mostly," I replied, forcing a smile. "Freelance, but I have steady clients." "Oh," Cheryl said. "Just oh." Then she turned to James and asked how the quarterly numbers were going at his firm. I wish I could say that moment surprised me, but it didn't. Because this wasn't my first time sitting across from someone's mom, watching her mentally calculate how much money I didn't make. For context, I'm not broke. I grew up working class. My dad was a mechanic. My mom worked admin at a school. But they were the save every penny kind of parents. No vacations, no debt, no name brands, just relentless saving. They bought a modest duplex in Queens when I was 10. By the time I graduated from Pratt, they'd paid it off in full. When they passed, dad from a heart attack, mom from cancer 2 years later, I inherited it. Both units. I rent out the top floor to a quiet music teacher named Gabriel, who pays on time and minds his own business. I live downstairs, modestly. I shop secondhand. I drive a 10-year-old Corolla. I don't wear logos, because wealth whispers. But Cheryl couldn't hear anything but the imaginary cha-ching sounds in her head when I dared to date her precious finance boy, James. James and I met at a mutual friend's Halloween party. I was dressed as Rosie the Riveter. He was a hot dog. We laughed. We danced. He got me a lift home and didn't try to come in. The next morning, he texted me a selfie with the caption, "Still a snack." I smiled so hard it hurt. He was sweet, steady, a little basic if I'm being honest. But after a series of emotionally unavailable creative types who ghosted me after 2 good nights and 1 bad brunch, basic felt like a miracle. He liked me. He remembered things. He called when he said he would. On our 3rd date, he said, "My mom is going to love you." And I should have known then. It started with little things. Cheryl would joke about how James always dated women with big personalities. She'd comment on my nails. "Oh, you don't do gel?" She once brought up prenups before we'd even said, "I love you." At Thanksgiving, she accidentally served me a smaller slice of pie. "I thought you were watching Carbs," she said when I noticed. James didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. "Come on," he said. "She's just old-fashioned. She does this to every girl I date." But the truth was, she didn't. I'd seen the photos of James's ex on his sister's Instagram, a tall, blonde corporate lawyer with a Peloton in her apartment. Cheryl loved her. "She was so ambitious," Cheryl said once. "I mean, Harvard Law. That girl had a plan." Translation: "And what do you have, little freelance girl? A Canva account?" So I made a decision. I wouldn't fight Cheryl's assumptions. I wouldn't correct her when she said things like, "I know it's hard not having a steady job." I wouldn't tell her about the duplex I owned, or the fact that my annual earnings, thanks to long-term branding clients and digital licensing, had crossed 6 figures the year prior. Instead, I let her believe what she wanted. I let her think I was the scrappy little artist with $45 in my checking account and a dream in my heart. And James? He never asked. He liked that I was low maintenance. He liked that I didn't care about labels or expensive vacations. He said I grounded him. And I smiled and nodded. Because he didn't know that while he Venmo'd me $20 just in case, after every dinner date, I had an auto transfer set up every month that sent $2,000 straight into a Roth IRA. When he proposed, at a rooftop bar with a sunset behind him and a ring box in his shaking hand, I said yes. Of course I did. I loved him. Or I loved the idea of him. Or maybe I just loved the feeling of being chosen by someone who, for once, didn't make me feel like I had to perform success to deserve affection. And yet, the second the ring was on my finger, Cheryl started asking about venues. "Of course, we'll be paying for the wedding," she said, glancing at me. "We want to make sure it's done right." Done right, meaning not done by my kind. And I said nothing. 2 months later, James and I hosted a small engagement brunch. Just family, a few close friends, nothing fancy. Bagels, champagne, good lighting. It was at my place, of course. I cleaned every inch, lit candles, played jazz. I debated, hard, whether to remove the framed deed that hung in my hallway. It was something my dad had made. A simple wood frame with, "From our hands to yours," carved into the bottom. Inside was the property title, both units, signed and notarized. He'd given it to me at 23 when I told him I was going to start working for myself. "People will assume a lot of things," he said. "Let them. You just do the work." But I didn't take it down. They arrived in matching beige. Cheryl in heels, James's dad in boat shoes. His sister Emily came too, with her fiancé, both of whom had already decided I was quirky and good for James. They smiled politely at the exposed brick, complimented the mid-century credenza I'd thrifted and refinished myself. Then Cheryl saw the frame. She stepped closer, squinting. "Oh," she said, voice too tight. "Is this?" "It's the deed," I said casually. "My parents left the property to me." She blinked. Once, then again. "You own this place?" "Both floors," I replied. "I live here and rent out the upstairs." Silence. Then, "Oh." James turned to me, confusion written all over his face. "Wait, what?" I smiled. I didn't think it was important. There it was. The shift. His dad suddenly seemed more interested in the conversation. His sister looked mildly betrayed. And James just stood there, blinking. "You never told me you owned a brownstone," he said. "It's a duplex," I corrected. "And I didn't think it mattered." "But why didn't you—" I sipped my champagne and shrugged. "I liked how you treated me when you thought I was broke." The silence was deafening. The room didn't recover. Not in the way you hope social tension will, where someone makes a joke, someone else laughs too loud, and everything goes back to brunch and bubbly. No. This was a break. You could feel it in the sudden stiffness of Cheryl's shoulders, the polite half-smile that dropped from her mouth like it had been held up by strings. In the way Emily suddenly started texting under the table. In the way James couldn't seem to meet my eyes. It felt like the air had turned to static. All because I had the audacity to not be the poor girl they thought I was. Cheryl wandered into my kitchen without asking, probably trying to get her bearings back by mentally scanning my appliances. When she opened the fridge and saw the champagne chilling in a lucite rack next to pre-cut watermelon, she said, "Oh, you really know how to host." I smiled. "Thanks." She paused, eyes still inside my fridge like she was trying to find something wrong. "Did you, do all this yourself?" "Yeah. I like entertaining." "Huh." It was such a small sound. A huh with 20 layers of meaning. She shut the door like she was slamming a gavel. James pulled me aside before dessert. We stepped out to the small back patio. Cracked concrete and a string of Edison bulbs I'd wrapped around the railing last summer. He didn't even sit. Just paced like a math teacher trying to understand a student's test answer. "I don't get it," he said. I leaned against the doorframe. "What's there to get? You own this place, and you never told me." "Right. For 2 years, Sam." My name in his mouth sounded different now, like it had dirt on it. "I didn't lie to you, James," I said. "I just didn't correct you when you assumed things." "But why? Why would you do that?" "Because your mom made it clear she thought I was beneath you." He exhaled hard, running both hands through his hair. "So what, this is revenge?" "No. It was self-preservation." He stared at me for a long second. Then he said, "I don't even know who you are." That one hurt. Because isn't that the lie we all agree to in relationships? That the version of ourselves we show them in the beginning is the realest one? He'd seen me at my worst. Sick, grieving, raging at a stubborn client at 1 a.m. He'd helped me carry up groceries, sat with me on the floor after I'd spilled black paint all over a project, listened to me talk about my mom's slow, painful last year. And now he was acting like I was a stranger. Not because I changed, but because I didn't match the story his family wanted to believe. The engagement party ended early. James's family left without dessert. His dad gave me a limp handshake and said, "Thanks for having us." Emily hugged me with the stiffness of someone hugging a stranger at a funeral. "Cheryl?" She didn't say goodbye. She just breezed past me, still wearing that strained smile like it was makeup she couldn't wait to scrub off. James left too. He said he needed to think. I nodded. Then I stood alone in my candlelit apartment with cold champagne and 2 untouched fruit tarts. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. The next few days were quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet in that way silence can feel like a pressure cooker. James didn't text, didn't call. I checked my phone constantly. At one point, I opened our shared photo album and just scrolled. Vacation pics, selfies, a video of him making pancakes shirtless. I missed him. But I also felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Rage. Not at James exactly, at the idea that my humility had become ammo. That me choosing not to flaunt what I had made me seem deceptive. While Cheryl had been rude, manipulative, and condescending for 2 years, but got a pass because that's just how she is. Then, 4 days later, the group chat popped off. Family brunch chat. Cheryl. Emily and I were talking. We think it's time to discuss the wedding budget. Emily. Just trying to help organize stuff. James. Guys. Cheryl. You'll want a venue, right, Samantha? And I assume you'll want your family to contribute what they can. That last part. What they can. As if she hadn't Googled both of my parents' obituaries after our second meeting. As if she didn't know they were gone. As if that wasn't part of why her tone stung so much every time she said things like, well, you'll want to do something small, I'm sure. I didn't respond in the group chat. Instead, I called James. He picked up on the third ring, his voice quieter than usual. Hey. I need to ask you something, I said. Okay. Do you actually want to marry me? Or were you just looking for someone easy? He was silent. Then, what does that mean? It means I've spent 2 years being the cool girl, the chill girl, the non-demanding girlfriend who doesn't care about brands or venues or money. But now that you know I'm not poor, everything's changed. That's not fair. Isn't it? He didn't answer, so I did it for him. I loved you, James. I still might. But I will not spend the rest of my life being tolerated by a woman who thinks I don't belong. More silence. Then he said something that sealed everything. I just wish you'd been honest. My mom wouldn't have acted like that if she knew. I hung up. Not out of drama. Out of finality. Because if your love for me is contingent on what your mom thinks I'm worth, we're done. That night I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine and called Gabriel, the music teacher upstairs. He came down with his cello and played Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah while I cried on a folding chair under the string lights. It was healing. Quiet. Messy. The next morning I texted James. Let's call it. I'll mail your stuff. No reply. Until 3 hours later. Okay. I boxed up his things that weekend. His hoodie. His coffee mug. That dumb IKEA lamp he insisted was perfect for reading. Then I sat in my kitchen and deleted every photo, every video, every saved voice memo. Gone. Then Cheryl emailed me. Not texted. Emailed. Subject. Wedding refunds. Samantha, I assume the engagement is off. Please confirm so we can begin refund processes. Also, please let us know if you expect any reimbursement for your portion of the venue deposit, though I believe James covered that. Regards, Cheryl T. I replied, Hi Cheryl, there is nothing to refund. I never wanted your money. You may keep your deposit. Consider it a gift. Best, Samantha. 2 weeks passed. Then one morning, I woke up to a ping on Venmo. James paid you $1,300. For? Coffee table? Electric bill, then. 2 years of not listening. No note beyond that. Just silence. I left it there. Didn't message him. Didn't return the money. Because sometimes closure is just knowing you were never the problem. A month after James and I broke up, Cheryl tagged me in a Facebook post. Yes, tagged. It was a photo of James and Emily at some charity event. Everyone dressed in pastels, holding wine glasses. The caption read, Proud of my babies. Raise them right. And then, in the comments, Samantha, we missed you that night. Hope you're doing well. Passive-aggressive warfare via Facebook comments. Truly the matriarchal Olympics. I didn't reply, but I took a screenshot, and I saved it in a folder on my desktop labeled, People Who Tried It. I wish I could say that was the last of it. But narcissists don't just fade away when you take away their favorite toy. They escalate. 3 weeks after that Facebook stunt, I got a text from Emily. Emily. Hey, sorry to text you. Just wondering if you have any of James's tax documents still? He says he left a folder at your place. Also, are you okay? That last part. So fake. So hollow. I could practically hear the smug. I replied, nothing here. Good luck. She left me on red, but she updated her Insta story 30 minutes later with a selfie captioned, "Protect your peace, had boss babe." Meanwhile, I was actually protecting mine. I'd started therapy again, signed up for a ceramics class on Thursdays, bought myself a ridiculous velvet couch from an estate sale and dragged it home with Gabriel's help. I can't believe you dated a guy who thought this was boho, he said, gesturing to the couch's ornate wooden feet. I laughed. I don't think he ever really saw me, I said. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. And you're okay with that? I nodded. I wasn't, but I'm getting there. 2 months post-breakup, something strange happened. I got an email from a woman named Celeste. Subject line, quick question about James? She said she found my portfolio online, realized we had James in common, and wanted to know if I was the Samantha from the duplex story. My heart did a weird skip. Turns out, James had started dating again. And this new girl, Celeste, was smart enough to Google him. She'd found a Reddit thread. Our wedding shaming, posted by you, Fustian and Fraud. MIL shamed me for being broke for 2 years, then found out I owned the building she was standing in. It was me, not my post, but my story. Someone at the brunch had clearly talked, maybe one of Cheryl's friends, maybe even Emily. Whoever it was, the story had gone viral. 30K upvotes, thousands of comments. And Celeste found it. She asked if we could talk. Normally, I'd ignore something like that. But there was something earnest in her email, so we met at a cafe in Brooklyn. She was tall, soft-spoken, clearly nervous. First off, she said, I'm so sorry to intrude. It's fine, I said. You Googled your boyfriend and found a horror story. She laughed. Basically. Then she pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of Cheryl. That's her, right? I nodded. She's already making comments about how I don't dress for my figure, and I've only met her once. I winced. Then Celeste said something that made me sit up straight. She told James that you stole from him. What? I blinked. She said you were squatting in some house and tricked him into thinking it was yours, that you used him for money. I choked on my iced chai. She's seriously spreading that? Celeste nodded. And James believes it? He doesn't disbelieve it. That stung more than I expected. Because for all his flaws, I didn't think James would rewrite the entire relationship in his head just to please his mother. But I should have known better. People don't like to admit they were wrong about you. It's easier to just change the story. I thanked Celeste, told her to trust her gut. Then I paid for both our drinks and walked home feeling something new. Fire. Not heartbreak, not sadness. Rage, but the clean kind. The kind that makes you reorganize your entire apartment and block people mid-scroll. The kind that makes you realize you deserve better than someone who lets their mom slander your name just to avoid confrontation. So I wrote something. Not a Reddit post, not a subtweet. A Medium essay, titled, Let Them Think You're Broke, on class, dating, and the myth of the gold digger. I didn't name names, but I told the story. The brunches, the assumptions, the real estate, the silence. I ended it with this. I don't care if you think I'm rich or poor. I care if you think I'm enough, and if you only loved me when you thought I had nothing, then you never loved me at all. It got picked up, fast, shared by a few feminist bloggers, then some bigger names. Next thing I knew, I was invited to speak on a podcast about power dynamics in modern dating. People commented things like, this felt too real. My ex's mom did the same thing. Protect Samantha at all costs. It wasn't fame, but it was something better. Validation. That I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't imagined it. That other women had been through the same silent war and lost themselves trying to stay small. James never reached out. Not even after the article blew up. But Cheryl did. She left a comment under the article. Anonymous, but I knew it was her. Some people lie by omission. Some people manipulate by playing humble. Just because you tell your side with prettier words doesn't make it true. I didn't reply. I let the other readers handle it. One person wrote, Lady, you sound exactly like the villain in this story. Another. If you can read this and still think it's about a real estate portfolio, you missed the point. 3 months after the breakup, I was on a panel with 2 other women writers talking about money and identity. Someone asked, "What would you say to your ex now if he were listening?" I paused. Then I said, "I'd say thank you. Because pretending to be small taught me that I never want to be small again. I want to be seen, fully. And if that's too much for someone, then they're not enough for me." The room went quiet. Then someone in the back clapped, and it spread. After the event, Gabriel met me outside with flowers. "Lily of the Valley," he said. "You're not the only one who knows symbolism." I smiled, touched. He leaned against the subway railing with me and said, "I'm glad you wrote it." "Me too." Then he asked, "Do you think you'll ever talk to him again?" I shook my head. I don't need to. But the universe has a sense of humor. Because that weekend, James emailed me. Not a call, not a text. A cold, precise email titled, "Closure." It read, "Hey, I saw your piece. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to keep the peace with my family. I'm sorry if that made you feel small. I hope you're doing okay. James." No punctuation, no ownership, just enough to say, "I tried." I closed it without replying, because silence can be power too. I didn't respond to James's email, not because I was being petty, but because I had finally learned something that took me years to understand. Not every story deserves an epilogue. Some people exit your life mid-chapter, and that's okay. Their absence writes its own ending. Fall crept in quietly. The air turned sharp. Gabriel switched from cello to piano in the mornings, and the sound floated through the vents like a lullaby made of grief and healing. I changed the pillows on my couch, painted my bedroom wall a deep, moody green, started burning incense instead of candles. Let the place feel mine again. One night, while reorganizing my bookshelf, I found the engagement ring, tucked in a little velvet box, still in the drawer where I'd thrown it after James left. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't custom, just a basic white gold solitaire with a barely there center stone. I stared at it for a long time. Then I walked it out to the trash. A week later, I got a DM request on Instagram from someone named Hannah Lee 27. I didn't recognize her until I opened it. "Hey, I'm James's cousin. I know we've never met, but I just wanted to say I read your Medium piece and I think you're incredible. Honestly, I always knew Cheryl was toxic, but hearing your side just confirmed everything. You deserved better. Just wanted to say that." I stared at the screen. Then I clicked her profile. Bachelorette party photos, beach selfies, bio. Faith, family, fitness. Not my usual crowd, but genuine. And for the first time, I realized something. They saw me now. Not just the version of me that James's family had painted. Quiet, poor, grateful to be chosen. The real me. And they liked her better. 3 months passed, then came the wedding. Not mine, of course. James's sister, Emily. It was all over Facebook. White barn venue, mason jars. A hashtag, #Emily and Jake tie the knot. Cheryl posted a photo with a caption that read, "One daughter down, one to go." She didn't tag James, but she didn't have to. In the comments, someone asked, "Is James still with that artist girl?" Cheryl replied, "Not anymore. Let's just say she wasn't who she pretended to be." The post got 5 likes. A few people messaged me screenshots. I didn't respond, but I updated my own profile photo that week. Me, barefoot in my living room, standing on the velvet couch, laughing mid-motion. No caption, just the image. Unbothered, unapologetic, free. It was around that time that a small publisher reached out. They'd read my essay. Said they wanted to do a short anthology. Stories of women reclaiming their narratives in modern relationships. They asked if I'd be willing to expand mine into a chapter. I said yes, and suddenly, I was an author. Not just a designer, not just a girl who freelances, an author, with a byline and royalties. The book launched the following spring. Small press, limited run. But it did something I didn't expect. It reintroduced me to me, the girl who loved words, the girl who used to write short stories in the margins of her notebooks, the girl who didn't need to be chosen to be worthy. I did a reading in Manhattan at a tiny independent bookstore with more dust than square footage. Gabriel came. So did Celeste. And after I read the last line, people clapped. For me. Afterward, Celeste pulled me aside. She'd left James 6 months ago. You were right, she said. He never really saw me. I hugged her tight. And for a moment, we weren't two ex-girlfriends of the same man. We were two women who'd escaped the same storyline. Gabriel and I kept getting closer. It wasn't romantic, exactly. Not yet. But there were moments. When he'd brush hair from my face. When we'd sit too close on the balcony. When our silences felt full instead of awkward. One night, after too much red wine and a playlist of sad women with guitars, he looked at me and said, "You know, you never stopped being the most interesting person in the room." I laughed. Not even at your cello recitals? Especially not at my cello recitals. Still, I hesitated. Because after James, I wasn't sure I could trust someone seeing me and staying. But then, one night we were cooking dinner together, him stirring pasta, me chopping garlic, and he said, "You don't have to shrink with me." And just like that, I exhaled. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't dramatic. It was real. Slow. Safe. And when we kissed for the first time, it felt like coming home to a place I didn't know I'd left. One afternoon, while rearranging some old boxes, I found a printed photo from the engagement brunch. Me and James, smiling, faking. I flipped it over. On the back, in his handwriting, it said, "Us, forever." I ripped it in half, then in quarters, then let it drift into the trash like paper snow. Not out of spite, out of release. Because I no longer needed that story. I threw myself into work. Started offering workshops for young women designers. Talked about branding, sure, but also boundaries. Money, value. I told them, you can wear thrifted jeans and own real estate. You can be soft and still be wealthy. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. They listened, because they'd lived it too. One of them asked me once, "Do you regret dating him?" I thought about it, then I said, "No, because if I hadn't, I might still be trying to fit into someone else's version of enough." She nodded, and I knew she got it. The first time I saw James again was at Trader Joe's, 9 months after the breakup, by the frozen dumplings. I had just tossed a bag of mandarin chicken into my cart when I looked up, and there he was. Sweatshirt, backwards cap, slight stubble. Still cute, still familiar, and suddenly my whole body went cold. Not because I missed him, but because I didn't. He didn't see me at first. He was squinting at the pot stickers, probably trying to decide if they were Whole30 compliant. But then he turned, and he froze. "Samantha," he said, like a question. I smiled. "Hey." We stood there for a beat. Shoppers moved past us, carts squeaking, bags rustling. Then he cleared his throat. "You look good." "Thanks, you too." Another silence. Then he said, "I read your book." "Oh?" He nodded. "It was intense." I tilted my head. "Was it true?" He paused. "It was your truth." There it was, that safe answer. Always the diplomat, never the truth teller. "I wasn't the villain," he added quickly. "You made it seem like—" "You weren't the villain," I said. "But you didn't stop her either." He flinched like I'd slapped him, but I didn't feel cruel. I felt clear. "I didn't know how," he said quietly. "Exactly," I said. And that was the whole problem. He stared down at his shoes, blue Nikes, still pristine. Then he looked up. "I think I loved you. I think you loved the idea of me." He looked like he might argue, but he didn't. Instead, he nodded once, slowly. Then he said, "Are you happy?" And I realized I was. I told him about the workshops, the book tour, the velvet couch, the mornings with piano notes coming through the floorboards, the tea cabinet I'd built from reclaimed wood. I didn't mention Gabriel. Not out of secrecy. Out of sacredness. Some things don't need to be shared with people who only knew your shadow. When I walked away, I didn't look back. No cinematic pause. No aching regret. Just the quiet, sturdy knowledge that I had finally become someone I didn't need to defend. That night, Gabriel made us gnocchi from scratch. We ate on the patio under string lights, knees touching, glasses sweating with white wine. And I told him, I ran into James today. He didn't tense, just nodded. How was that? Closure, I said. He smiled. You okay? I looked at him, really looked, at his messy curls, his soft hands, his kind eyes, and I said, for the first time in years, I'm more than okay. Later, we sat on the couch. I was barefoot. He was reading aloud from a poetry book we found at a thrift store, and I thought about how much time I'd wasted trying to earn space, trying to make myself smaller, softer, more palatable. But now I was living in full color, full voice, full value. A few weeks later, I got an email from a college student named Priya. She'd read my essay, bought the book, followed me online. She wrote, "Your story made me leave my boyfriend. He said my ambition made him feel insecure. I used to think that was my fault. It's not. Thank you." I cried reading it. Not from sadness, from recognition. Because once upon a time, I was her. And now I was me. I framed a new photo for the hallway. Not the deed, not an article, not an award, just a Polaroid of me, on the couch, in a hoodie and socks, holding a cup of tea and laughing at something Gabriel said off camera. No caption, just truth. 6 months later, Cheryl emailed me. Again. Subject, apology? I almost deleted it. But curiosity won. She wrote, "I don't know if you'll read this, but I saw you on a podcast. I realize I treated you unfairly. I'm sorry for what I said, and didn't say. I've been working on myself. You didn't deserve that. Cheryl." No manipulation, no spin, just words. I didn't reply, because forgiveness doesn't always require a handshake. Sometimes it's just letting go. I think about her sometimes, not with hate, just distance. The way you think about a place you once got lost in. You remember the fear, sure, but you also remember the way out. Gabriel proposed on a rainy Thursday. No ring, no speech, just a pancake breakfast and a post-it on my coffee that said, "So, want to try forever with me?" I said yes, with tears in my eyes and butter on my chin. It was perfect. We didn't have a big wedding. Just us, a few close friends, and a tiny garden behind a bookstore. I wore a $90 dress I found online. He wore a suit he'd had for years. And when I said, I do, I meant, I do choose peace. I do choose honesty. I do choose a love that never asks me to shrink. Afterward, we danced barefoot on the grass. My old college roommate played acoustic guitar. Gabriel twirled me like we were 16. And I didn't think once about who was watching, because the only people there already saw me. That night, back at the duplex, we slow danced in the living room. Same room where Cheryl had once stood in judgment. Same room where James had once asked me why I lied. Same room I had cried alone with champagne and silence. Now filled with music, laughter, love. I whispered, "I'm glad I never proved myself to them." Gabriel smiled against my neck. "You never needed to." So, if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt like you had to earn your place, or prove your value, or explain your choices to people who already decided what box you belong in, let me say this. You are allowed to be soft and successful. You are allowed to be humble and whole. You are allowed to be seen. And if someone only loved you when you seemed small, let them stay there. Because you, my love, are not made to shrink. You are made to expand. Would you have done what she did, or should she have told them everything from the start? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.